just want to explain a principle. What we learned, Arthur, because I know you were having to sort out things, is that did you follow up to date where we were?
I sort of got the idea. Basically, you were discussing, from what I could grasp, was if someone wants wheat, and the other guy, let's offer 100 thing of wheat, and the guy says offering barley, 50 barley, which is of less value, then it goes to the stage where it can be dropped out of court because it's not the right thing. If he wants to go after only the 100 grams of wheat. But then you're also discussing, on the other hand, the guy could also go for the 50, if he was willing to. The other I was discussing that he could go for the other barley as well, but it'd be a lesser deal.
That's no, it's not. That's what we discussed yesterday and the day before. So let's just come out with two sentences quickly. The bottom line is that we learned from Shavuos is oaths. It's a book like Bava Kamma, and it deals with all the oaths that you give in a court case. Okay, and with all those oaths that you deal in a court case, you've got it's Shavuos 38b. So what the Mishnah is telling us, that there's a certain oath called a modeh b'mikatz, which means that if I'm the plaintiff and I'm suing somebody and I take the defendant to court, if we're arguing on the same material, in that case, he has to take an oath that he doesn't owe me the amount I'm suing him for. That he takes an oath that the amount that he's claiming he owes me is the less amount of Hashem's name. Now, it wouldn't work today because people lie even with Hashem's name, unfortunately. So in that particular case, it wouldn't work today. But in those days, people were frightened of using Hashem's name in vain. So you could only take the oath if we both agreed to the same item, but at the end of the day, we were disputing at amounts. So that was in the Mishnah. So we said, well, what do we need Rabbi Bar Nasser's statement for? Because we know that. So we're saying, no, we needed Rabbi Bar Nasser's statement because you would have thought that even if you didn't take an oath, that if I'm admitting to barley and I said I owe you 50,000 rands worth of barley instead of 200,000 rands worth of wheat, that would have been taken at least seriously, that at least you could get paid, the barley. So we're saying the reason that you don't get paid the barley is that has nothing to do with the court case in hand. Nothing at all to do with it, because the guy's suing you for wheat. So what does it have to do with barley? So apart from the fact that you've given up the claim, you're dealing with a different court case entirely. So he doesn't even have to pay with the barley, because the Gemara said, well, surely that we should pay with what the defendant said. Then we went on to the next thing, and we said, but hang on a second. It goes back to the Gemara that says that if the plaintiff sues the defendant, who is the damager in this case, for his oxen that were damaged, in that particular case, just hang on a second. In that particular case, he shouldn't be getting anything. So why is it the case that we're saying it goes back to the fact that what the defendant admitted to, he gets paid out? So we're saying this is in contradiction to Rabbi Bar Nasser. It doesn't make sense. And we said, listen, it only comes into play if he seized the damager's oxen. Okay? So why? Because I said if there were two creditors, we learned this a long time ago. Gavin lent me money first, and then I borrowed money from Kevin. But Kevin, I had to go down to Cape Town on a business trip, and Kevin saw the opportunity and took my oxen. Then Kevin actually, even though he lent me money last, and chronologically, if it came to court between Gavin and Kevin suing me, that if Kevin didn't seize my oxen, that Gavin would be paid first, and if there was anything left over, Kevin would be paid, because chronologically he lent me money first. But it's so strong, the power of possession, that there's an English term, possession as 9/10 of the law, which means if Kevin as the latter creditor seized my oxen, he gets to keep it before Gavin, even though Gavin lent me the money first. That's how powerful that concept is of seizing the creditor or the damager's property. So we're saying only in a case when he seizes it, does he then have to agree to what the damager admitted to. So Art, have you disappeared there a sec?
I'm here.
So mate, please just give me a second of your time.
I'm listening. I just turned to the side side.
So what I'm saying is this. At the end of the day, we're saying just because you seized the property doesn't entitle you to keep all of the amount at all. In other words, say Kevin seized, I owed Kevin 100 zuz, okay? And Kevin seized 200 zuz worth of stuff. He's not allowed to keep my 200 zuz because I only owe Kevin 100 zuz. Does that make sense? So therefore,
you can't make a profit from the what's in it.
You can't steal. It's theft. Exactly. No one profit. You can't steal. So what it's saying is here, if the damager only admitted that his tam ox attacked and killed my ox, and then I seized his 2 oxen, okay, then while Kevin was in Cape Town, there's no ways that I would be allowed to keep the full amount as though it was a Muad ox, unless I brought proof that it was a Muad ox, okay? I could only seize what the damager admitted to. But if I seize no animal, I would be forfeiting my claim unless I could bring proof. I lose everything. Only when you seize can you accept what the worst case scenario of what the damager admitted to. But I want to give you guys the reason for it. Okay. This is the reason for it. Is that if you seize the animal prior to the court proceedings, it entitles the plate. Guys, I'm hearing a lot of crashing and bashing in the background.
That's probably me. Put me on mute.
All right, Art, let me wait for you to come back because this is the last session we're going to do on this entire book. Can you please, mate, give me 5 minutes of your time? All right. So what I'm saying to you is as follows, is that there's a principle here, Gavin, that the reason that the plaintiff can keep what the defendant admits, according to Rashi, is that forfeiture is only effective for something that one has not yet, that one doesn't possess yet. In other words, if I'm saying to you that you owe me such and such, but I don't have it in my possession, I don't have it. Of course I've forfeited it if I don't acknowledge your claim. I've never had it. But if I kidnap your item, okay, then in that particular case, there is no forfeiture because I own it. Forfeiture is only effective for something you don't possess yet. I can't legally forfeit what I already have without making a formal declaration of abandonment, which means I have to make a formal declaration of making something hefker, ownerless. So if the plaintiff already had the oxen in his possession, his forfeiture of what he is entitled to according to the defendant's admission is ineffective. So in other words, what I'm saying is as follows, is I turn around and I say, Arthur's ox was muad, it's got a habitual nature and gored me, but I've got Arthur's 2 oxen, okay? Then in that particular case, I don't bring any evidence. Then in fact, I'll say, listen, I'll take what Arthur admitted to as the damager, who is defending his claim, and saying, I'll take the tam ox. And the reason I can take it is because I'm not seizing anything that the court has given to me. I have it. I only have to give back the muad because I can't prove it. If I don't have it in the possession, then I've never laid claim to it. You have to acquire something to lay claim to it. So if I say to the court that Arthur owes me muad for the muad ox damage in full payment damages, and the court says, do you accept that it's only muad and not tam? I'll say, of course. Arthur owes me full payment for his muad ox doing damage. The court says, prove it. I can't. They say, well, sorry, you don't get anything. No. Arthur admitted to his tam ox attacking my ox and killing it. I'll take that. No, you can't take it because you said his claim is irrelevant. You wanted the full money. You forfeited it. If I take both his oxen, and I say that Arthur owes me full payment for a muad ox, and the court says prove it, and I can't, they'll say give him back the muad, give him back the ox that you claim was muad, and keep the ox that you say is tam, because they're both in your possession. But you can't keep what the defendant has not admitted to. Does that make sense, guys? It's very clear.
Yeah.
Okay, because you own it. You can't forfeit what you've already had. Okay, so let's go on to the last section. The Gemara presents the same challenge to Rabbi Bar Nassan's ruling from the Mishnah's last case. We learned in our Mishnah, if one ox was tam and the other ox was muad, and the damaged party said to the muad ox damaged the large ox and the tam damaged the small one. While the damager says not so, the tam damaged the large ox and the muad damaged the small one. In both of these cases, the burden of proof rests on the one who seeks to exact money from his fellow. This implies that the damaged party does not bring proof. He takes as much as the damager says. But why is this so? This is in effect the case of wheat and barley. Okay? So we're saying the Gemara answers the Mishnah's proof means that he's eligible to take payment if he brings proof, but in the absence of his proof, he has nothing. The Gemara challenges this explanation of the Mishnah, but it has been taught otherwise in the following brisa, which concludes this last case of our Mishnah. This one, the damaged party is paid from the small one from the muad, and from the large one with the tam. The Gemara answers the brisa refers to where the damaged party has already seized the oxen in question in anticipation of his claim in court, but where he did not seize them, the damaged party would receive nothing as all, as Rabbi Bar Nassan rules. So all we are saying is, if you read the Mishnah, there are two cases of. The first case is you've got a large and a small ox. So in the case of them being tam, I'm saying that since I'm paid for the half payment damages in the body of the animal, I want to say your larger ox damaged my larger ox and your smaller ox damaged my smaller ox, so I can get the most on your attacking ox's body. Okay? So then, so it's saying, well, if you don't bring proof, you get nothing. But if you seize the ox, you can get what the damager admitted to. Now we're talking about that last part of the Mishnah, which says, hang on, we're talking about a tam and muad. We're not talking about a large and small ox. But then it also applies, because you would want your muad ox, Arthur, to damage my large ox. Why would you? Why would you?
Because you make the most money.
Exactly. You make the most money. You get full payment on the value of the large ox you claim. So we're saying again, but there is a refutation. It seems that you get to what the damager admitted to, the defendant admitted to. And you said, no, you don't. You get nothing unless you bring proof, unless the damaged party kidnap both the oxen, and then he only has to give back what the damager admitted to. But his failure to kidnap the item means he's got nothing to claim. Whereas if he kidnapped it, he'd only have to forfeit what he can't prove, but not the less amount the damager offered. So Arthur understood it perfectly now. And mate, there's just one last bit that we have to do, then we're done. The Gemara analyzes the third case of the Mishnah. If both oxen belong to one man, both of them are liable. What does this mean? So the Gemara at this point understands that the ruling that both oxen are liable means that each ox is liable separately. In other words, you can collect for the liability. So the Mishnah is ruling that when one of the two tam oxen with the same owner damaged another ox, and the witness can't identify which ox did the damaged party may collect the damages from either of the oxen. Does that make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Okay. So so then there's a question that the Gemara asks. What did they ask? Rava Bar Padzika said to Rav Ashi, are we to conclude from this that where one of the two tam oxen did damage, if the damaged party wishes, he may collect from this one, and if he wishes, he may collect from this one? So it means basically, if even one of the oxen was lost, the damaged party can choose to collect payment from the remaining ox. This is the question. And it says, what rationale can there be of such a ruling? So Rav Ashi answered, with what case are we dealing with here? We are dealing with oxen that are muad. Okay. So what does this mean? Is we're saying, okay, if you've got both the oxen in front of you, okay, I've got both my oxen, and my oxen damaged your oxen, but you didn't see exactly which one, and I didn't see exactly which one, and the witnesses didn't know one ox from another, then you can claim from either of the oxen, providing I've got both the oxen there. So then the Gemara asks, well, what if one of the oxen was missing? How do you know that was the ox that did damage? And we're saying the ox has to be muad. Why does it have to be muad and not tam? I'm asking you because you also did Chazorah. If any of you can answer.
I can answer. Let somebody else try.
Art, you want to try, mate?
My brain just give me the last part. I understand the muad and the tam. I didn't catch the last part.
Okay. So we're saying, listen, we understand if nobody can identify the ox and you've got two in front of you, that I can choose from either one because no one can identify which ones are damaged. But what we're saying is, if one of the oxen are missing, why would it have to be muad? It would only be in a case of muad I could collect from the one.
Probably the reason being for that, I would think, is because you only have one, you're supposed to have two, so it moves the status from tam to muad. That's the answer to go. If you had two and the one's gone, then two halves of tam make a muad.
Okay, so Arthur's asking actually a very good question, surprisingly. Not surprisingly that he asked a good question. No, he asked many good questions, but I'm saying it's surprising how brilliant it is. Because what Arthur's saying is as follows, is that we would think that if you could choose one of two oxen, that you have privy to both. Like, you know, when you sign liability jointly and severably. So if you're signing, what is it called when you sign surety for somebody? Jointly and severally is if three people are signing surety for one person and that one person can't pay back the money, they can be sued together for the full amount, or that's jointly or severably, each one can be sued in their own capacity. So we're saying, Arthur's saying that if you can't identify either of the oxen, you can take either one. So if one's missing, then why can't you just take whichever one is remaining? Because you could have taken both originally, and we're saying no. The wording used in the Gemara is both. So that's why Arthur's question is so good. It's saying you are entitled to both of them are liable. It says if both oxen belong to one man, both of them are liable. So this answers a question in the Gemara, which says even though both are liable, you can't take both. It's like that contract jointly and severably. So if myself and somebody else sign surety for somebody, we're both liable to pay back the debt if that person can't pay it back. And say, for example, the person borrows 20,000 Rand Arthur, and they can't. Then myself and the other person signing for them, if we sue jointly, have to pay 10,000 Rand each. If that second person absconds, then I'm stuck, or that other person is broke that signed surety, then I'm stuck with the full bill of the 20,000. That's what it means jointly and severably. So the same thing here is jointly and severably, in that you can choose from either of the oxen if they can't identify which ox. But if one ox is missing, you can't just say, well, you want full payment from the one ox because you could have taken half payment from each. No, it means you can take either of the oxen because you can't identify, but not both the oxen. Do you have any insight you wanted to add?
No, I just remember reading, if the oxen with the oxen being tam, if it's tam, then you have a claim against the oxen, not really against the owner. Whereby if it's muad, you got a claim directly against the owner.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer. What Gavin is saying, can I just word it a little differently? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So what Gavin is saying is that it would have to be a case of muad, because if it's a case of tam, and you've got both oxen in front of you, you're claiming half payment damages from the body of an ox. And since the witnesses cannot identify which ox it is, you can take from the body of either ox. Okay? But since one ox is missing, you can't automatically take from the body of that ox because we're not sure if it's that ox that damaged you. And therefore you lose claim to it. The only time you can still have claim is if one of the oxen damaged you was muad, it was a case of muad, and therefore you're not claiming from the body of an ox. You're claiming payment damages in lieu of that amount of full payment from the choice property of the damager. And therefore it doesn't matter if that particular ox is present or not. You still owe the money for the damage by the owner of that ox, because you're not paid out from the body of the damaging ox. Therefore, not both the oxen have to be present. Even if the oxen wasn't present, you're okay. As long as one of the oxen is present. If both disappeared, then you don't have any claim. Okay. So excellent answer, Gavin. So we're just going to go forward quickly. So Rava of Zika counted. If the Mishnah is discussing muad oxen, then consider the latter ruling of the Mishnah. If one of the oxen was large and one was small, and the damaged party says the large one did the damage, while the damager says not so, rather the small one did the damage, the burden of proof rests upon the one who seeks to exact money from his fellow. Now, if the Mishnah is dealing with muad oxen, what difference does it make to the damaged party whether the large ox or the small ox did the damage? In the final analysis, the damager will have to pay the value of the complete ox. So what it's saying is, as follows. Rava Zika actually noted a problem, saying you can't say that this is dealing with the muad ox, because then why bring the latter part of the Mishnah that says we're talking about a large and small ox? The very fact that this is an issue is only if you're paying on the body of the animal, because if you're paying the body of the animal, then you're paying up to the body of what the damaging animal is worth. Therefore, if your small animal attacked my large ox, and it was a puny little thing, not only are you paying half payment damages, but even less, because if you owed me, if my ox was dead and it was worth 400 zuz while alive, okay, and you owe me now 200 zuz because it's ton, but your attacking ox is worth 80 zuz, I only get 80 zuz. So why am I fighting you in court if it's a muad ox? Since I'm going to be paid the full 400 zuz anyway. So it's obviously talking about tam oxen. So it can't be, according to the response of Rav Ashi, who said we're talking about muad oxen, which I think, guys, is a brilliant point. So now Rav Ashi counters and says to Rava of Zika, the latter case is dealing with tam oxen, and the preceding case is dealing with muad oxen. So we're saying, look, there's two different halachas here. When we're dealing with the muad ox, it doesn't matter if one of the oxen is missing, because you're not paying off the damaging body of the ox. So one of the ox can be missing. But in your case, when you're talking about the latter case of the Mishnah, when you're talking about where it is a tam ox, this issue is relevant. Okay? So Rav Ashi's answer is again challenged. Rav Acha the elder said to Rav Ashi, but if the Mishnah is dealing with muad oxen, how can the Mishnah rule the oxen are liable? The person is liable, is what the Mishnah should have said. And furthermore, what does the Mishnah mean when it states both of them are liable? So what it's saying is as follows. The wording of the Gemara, Kevin, is they, meaning the oxen, are liable. So if Rav Ashi is dealing with muad oxen in the first part, how can the Mishnah say the oxen are liable? Muad oxen are never liable. The owners are liable because he has to pay from choice property. The oxen are only liable in a case it's referred to when they tam oxen, because you're paying from the body of the damaging animal. Does that make sense, guys? So if he's talking about Rav Ashi, that the muad oxen in the first part, he should have said that the person, in other words, the owner is liable. But how can the Mishnah says the oxen are liable unless it states that they're tam? Because the term is both of them are liable. What does it mean, both of them are liable? In the beginning, it says both of them are liable, meaning that if the witnesses can't identify which ox did it, both of them are liable, meaning you can select payment from either one, not from both. So that's to answer Arthur's brilliant question. So the word both, according to Tosfot and Rabbeinu Peretz, is superfluous because it just means either or. So the ruling both oxen are liable does not mean that either ox is liable, in other words, collectible for damage, at the Gemara had understood previously. So we're going to learn a new concept. So having refuted Rav Ashi's answer, the Gemara gives a new explanation. Because Rav Ashi was saying, Arthur, that we learned so far, that, listen, you need both oxen there, and if either one's missing and you're paying on muad, either oxen will suffice to take payment for that, because the owner of a muad ox, you can take it either from the ox or from choice property. Does that make sense? So according to Rav Yishmael, even for that oxen, you've only got a payment as a creditor. But what we're saying is here is that there was a refutation that it's talking about muad oxen because it says the oxen are liable, meaning it can't be talking about a muad ox, it must be talking about a tam ox. Okay, and that being the case, we have to relearn the Gemara's explanation. It says, in fact, having refuted Rav Ashi's answer, the Gemara offers a new explanation. We must return to our original premise that the Mishnah is dealing with oxen that are tam. Okay? In other words, when the ruling says both oxen are liable, it doesn't mean that either ox is liable. In other words, collectible for damage, as the Gemara had understood until this point. But rather that only when both oxen are present before the court can the damaged party collect, because the Mishnah is rendered that both of them, Shneihem, have to be present, then they are liable. If, however, we do not have both oxen before us and one of them becomes lost, the possibility exists that the lost ox is the one who inflicted the damage and the damaged party does not collect at all. That's what Rashi is saying. Okay? So, and the reason that there's liable for both of the oxen involved in the chase here is that the damager cannot push aside the damaged party. In other words, if they can't identify which ox did the damage, but the damager has got both oxen, it goes to court and the court determines which ox the damaged party gets paid with. He can't push aside the damaged party and say, well, you can't determine which ox did the damage, therefore you're not getting paid. Saying not true. If you've got both oxen, you still come to court and the court decides. However, unless both oxen are there, the damager then can tell the damaged party, go bring proof that this ox is the one that damaged you and I will pay you. Meaning that both of those oxen would actually have to appear. Does that make sense? In order to get payment, in other words, if you don't have witnesses that can identify, you still get paid. But if you've got one missing, you don't get paid because the principle is that if it's a tam ox, it might be the wrong ox. It's up to the court to decide. And I just want to read one last phrase from the book, and then we're done. So, since Rabbi Akiva maintains that the damaged party is compensated by becoming a part owner of the ox, if the ox becomes lost, the damaged party loses his compensation. Thus, when only one of the two possible damaging oxen are present, the damager is not liable, for you can say to the damaged party, in order for you to collect, you must prove that this is the ox that inflicted the damage. Rav Yishmael ever rules that the damaged party does not automatically become a partner in the tam, but rather that compensation is a debt, which the damager may pay in any form that he chooses. Accordingly, when one of the oxen become lost, since it's not the damaged party ox which became lost, the damaged party's compensation is not lost because he's a creditor. Tosfot disagrees with Rashi in the Meiri because he said it's clear from the Gemara on 33b that even according to Rav Yishmael, when the tam ox becomes lost, the damager is free of any personal liability. Rabbi Akiva and Rav Yishmael disagree only as to whether the damager has an option to pay with money and keep his ox. According to Rabbi Akiva, the damaged party automatically becomes a partner in the ox, whereas according to Rabbi Yishmael, the damager has the option to pay cash and keep his ox. Maybe he trained that ox. Maybe he doesn't want to relinquish the ox. Accordingly, Tosfot argues Rav Ishmael would agree with the ruling of the Mishnah that only when both oxen are present before the court, there is liability. But when one of the oxen is lost, the possibility exists that the lost ox is the one that inflicted the damage and the damaged party has lost the ability to connect. All right. So guys, we have where's Arthur? Mate? Just come back for this, it's important.
Yeah, I'm just cooking something for my wife, but okay, carry on, yeah.
No, this is important. I don't want to get in trouble with your wife, but we finished. So I need 5 minutes, and then we're done. We literally have got 6 minutes left. So we say, how do you say Hatarain Eilech Hamaniach? We shall return to you Hamaniach. That's what we say at the end of the 3rd chapter. So guys, we officially finished the first book of Bava Kamma. And I just want to thank all of you for tolerating me and putting in such a lot of effort and really, really working hard. Guys, this is 1/3 of the marathon done. I just want to thank you guys very, very, very much for helping learn with me and for everything. I can't tell you how grateful I am to see all of you every day.
And thank you from all of us, I'm sure. Yeah. Thank you for everything you've done and for the effort that you put in. You put in a couple of hours a day on this. It's a lot of work, especially on the difficult ones. You've done an amazing, amazing job. You really have. And it's quite easy for us to understand most of the time. There's just certain times we'll be battled, but the majority of the time you make it really clear and easy for us to understand. So thank you for
that. Pleasure. Listen, guys, I haven't always gotten it right, and I've been happy to, if you note anything that I've done wrong or whatever, I'm always happy for you to bring evidence and to correct a mistake I might have made, and I'm sure I have made mistakes, really. I just want to do a bracha.
Okay.
Can I ask you, Butti, please, just to give me 4 minutes? Nadine can wait for 4 minutes.
Can let me turn the stove off then? Okay.
Okay. So I want to do a bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'echianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Blessed art you, Hashem, our God, sovereign King of all, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to the season. We've done this before Shavuot, at which we were given both the written and oral Torah. And I want to thank you, all of you, very, very much, and thank Hashem most of all for allowing us to be alive during COVID. It's been a year where many people have passed away. And I feel very blessed to have learned with you, my friends. Very, very blessed. I think that we're not going to. I want to also, on a special note, thank Arthur for all your technical uploading of the shiurim, your creating of Google Drive, your mascot, your cat, your muscat instead of your mascot. I want to thank you for your muscat or your muscats.
Your cat as well.
Yeah, but your cat loves the limelight. I can't compete with your cat. It loves the limelight.
Well, your cat loves shutting down your computer. I mean, we both have skilled animals.
Oh, and I need to thank Arthur on a separate note for coming to the rescue every time my cat has rebooted the computer and made it crash. I want to thank Kevin for teaching us the halachas. I want to thank Gavin for not letting go of any error I've made and for noting any sort of weakness. Like a shark, he can smell blood, and he's made me define my points better and made me research and check and check and check. And he doesn't accept mediocrity. So all of you have pushed up the game.